Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, has urged all banks to apply the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, especially in the lending of funds to government and their institutions. He made this call in a keynote address at the Fiscal Responsibility Commission Stakeholder Dialogue on the implementation of Section 45 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act on Saturday in Lagos. An assistant director at the SGF office, David Adhere, who represented Akume, stated that the meeting was aimed at promoting fiscal discipline.
This government is determined to get things right from the beginning to avoid mistakes that have dragged the nation into huge domestic and foreign debts. Accordingly, this particular direction is to ensure that the nation follows the laid-down rules and regulations in order to ensure prudence, transparency, and accountability in the management of public funds, and to effectively depart from such practices that have left so much debt for successive governments. However, this dialogue is not an argument against borrowing, but borrowing through the right way and for the right reasons, for the good of the people of Nigeria. We have made the rules to ensure that the government officials at all levels do not abuse this process. In fact, governments all over the world grow faster and better through very good and strong institutions, rules, and regulations. It is therefore imperative that all stakeholders are enlightened about the provisions of our law, including the state governments. Arising from this, there is no doubt that today's stakeholder dialogue on implementing Section 45 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 is worthwhile.
The executive chairman of the FRC, Victor Muraiko, also implored all Nigerian banks to cohere to the provision of the FRA 2007 in the lending process to the government and agencies.
Our hope is that at the end of this program, that the key stakeholders must resolve on the way forward, particularly the implementation of Section 45 of the Act. There are some questions we must ask ourselves. Are we happy as stakeholders where our country is presently on issue of loan and borrowing? If we all agree that we are not happy, where should we be? What are those things we should do to get there? Must we continue to borrow the way we're going? Honestly speaking, borrowing is not completely a negative thing, particularly when it's meant for public use.
Mr. Greg Jobom, the Executive Director, Risk Management Division, Access Bank, spoke on behalf of the banks, noted that they will continue to partner with stakeholders which will encourage responsible lending practices, transparency, and accountability.
In many developing countries, banks are still the biggest conduit for funding. They are big, what's called intermediation players. So this kind of session can only be the beginning of a larger and deeper engagement process. Because once you get the banks, to the table, it means that you are able to not only garner the funds that you need, you're also able to ramp up on the monitoring and the investment efficiency that I spoke about earlier on. Now, you have the majority of banks in Nigeria present today, but they are representing the institutions. Now that story and that engagement has to go on at the individual bank level, at the regional level, and I'm hoping that there will be additional events like this to further drive home the message that we need to strengthen our monitoring capacity and our compliance level as it relates to the management of the proceeds of subnational borrowing.
The FRC Stakeholder Dialogue has unified a diverse group of participants, including banking institutions, government representatives, economics, academics, and experts in fiscal governance.